حسنا بروفيسور سلمان، إذا وجهت إليك نفس السؤال، ما هي الدولة التي يمكن أن يتخيلها المسلم؟ ما الذي تعنيه بالخلافة؟
I think one of the things that I try to articulate in the book is this, that we need to think about the possibility of a political structure which is not completely bound by the ecology of the existing nation state. Now, in a way, you said, this is an impossible dream. But if you think of, let's say, the European Union, you can see how the European Union, despite all its limitations, has put together a structure in which there is a pooling of sovereignty to produce or try and produce outcomes for all its populations or variations of that. Let's complicate the picture. Why is that possible for the European Union and not possible for the Muslim Ummah? I don't think there's any logical reason. Now, the thing people forget, people often say, well, there's so many differences and there are hundreds of years. But this is nonsense. Between 1871 to 1945, Germany and France fought at least 3 major wars. They occupied each other's countries. They killed hundreds of thousands of each other's citizens, if not more. And then, after 1945, a decade later, they form the beginning of the European Union. So if these 2 countries had such deep antagonisms, which led to bloodshed of an industrial scale, are able to put together a confederal or associated arrangement, then even at that level, why would that be impossible? And if you think in geopolitical terms only that, it shouldn't be that difficult to imagine that if there was a political structure which pooled some element of the fragmented Muslim resources, powers, and things like that, whatever, surely that would be better for Muslims everywhere, despite everything. So right now, we have a problem on the planet. The Muslims are too large in number to be completely ignored.
Around 2 billion now.
Yeah, right? But they're too weak to be accommodated. So you have a disconnect between the Muslim presence of Muslimness and political mechanisms and structures at a global level that can reflect their interests in any meaningful way. So there's only 2 kind of solutions. One is that you try and weaken Muslimness and go back to a state where Muslims are no longer conscious of being 2 billion and they start thinking of themselves in these narrow nationalist terms, which is a kind of a balkanization at a global scale even further. It's more difficult to do because the Muslimness is not being projected by state authorities. It's actually been done by a popular level. So how you do that, how you break people's idea of being ummatic requires a different types of violence in a way. Or you find a structure to bring some kind of close that gap between these discordant positions. Or you carry on with a series of a global dirty war in which Muslim attempts to be autonomous, to have agency, to try and regulate and control their lives, is constantly being crushed. Now, right now, you have a number of struggles going on where, you can see what's, for example, in Pakistan, or you can see in Tunisia, you can see in Algeria, you can see many places where even the demand for Muslims to have some kind of autonomy over their daily lives is met by a resistance. And never mind the cases like, the familiar ones, which is happening in Palestine or in Kashmir or Eastern Turkestan or among the Rohingya, you can multiply those examples. So ultimately, it seems to me that really what we're talking about as a caliphate is a metaphor for the name that gives Muslim voices some capacity in the shape of the world and the shape of their own destiny.